that actually helps you as a hotel. And to kind of name off three, and I'm sure there's many others that I've missed, but I think on top of my head, hey, it's important for the guest experience, right? Just as a guest, how do you receive communication? Is that uniform? Is that in a flow? And does that all make sense? Not only for the guests, but also internally for your staff, right? If you have a tech stack that works, that prevents staff members from having to write over and type over things like that. And the result of that is basically twofold: is lower cost because you have a better designed and better integrated system altogether, and it prevents failure, right? If it doesn't communicate well with each other, there is lots of opportunities for manual failures, and that you can eliminate by designing a good or well thought out tech stack when you start. But I'm sure I missed something, Tobias. You have.
No, I can only add some little things to it, because I totally agree that it's not only about the guest experience, as you already said, the staff experience, especially nowadays with all those staff shortages, is, I would say, even more important now, because if the staff is happy and can do their job more efficiently, this also affects the guest experience drastically, because most probably if it's well, if all those repetitive tasks have been cleaned out, maybe automated, there's so much more time to actually engage with the guests, not only asking them what they plan for today, but actually maybe thinking ahead, anticipating what they might need from you, and to be able to actually bring this human touch in there. Because without this human touch, I guess most of us are in this industry because it's a people's business, and tech can help us be more human in a way, I'd say, and not only stare on our computers and typing something, putting something from A to B. It helps in this turn then again also to increase loyalty by the guests. Yeah, it's a better word of mouth. It increases your image or the reception people have from you, and in the end, most probably the guests will come again, or at least recommend you to somebody else who's traveling to the same destination.
And I think it's super interesting what you mentioned, that sometimes we believe that technology is going to take away the human touch, but in reality, it's actually allowing us to even do more, right? And like working for the best with us, it's actually helping us. And that's one point that we're going to touch on a little bit later. But great to hear these inputs to start. So now we're seeing having a tech stack is basically having, it's going to have an effect on different areas, not just your guest experience, but also your guest loyalty. It's going to have an effect also the way your team works and how efficient they are. And also, I would say it's super important regarding how motivated they are. Because I've talked to several teams and they are like, you know what, I'm so tired. I have so many repetitive and manual things to do. It's the same thing over and over again. And that has an impact as well in how they communicate to the guest and in the guest experience overall. So I think that part, right, regarding like your actual team, that is also super important.
That was 100%. It was one of my worst jobs I've ever had at the hotel, is taking CRS reservations that were printed out and then having to manually enter them into the PMS system for 8 hours a day while standing all day. That was, but you'll be surprised how many hotels still operate on that way and still have non-integrated reservations coming in and that manually have to be put through to a PMS system. So.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is maybe a lot of hotels over the last years bought a lot of systems because they were available. They had really great salespeople around, and so all of a sudden they have 5, 6, 7, 20 systems in there. None of them maybe talk to each other, and so instead of making their lives easier, it's the contrary is the case. So maybe sometimes less is more.
Exactly.
But I do must applaud you, Tobias. Thank you for only pointing out salespeople from tech vendors that are pointed this on. Marketing people have nothing to do. Like Joanna and I are off.
We are safe. Yes, exactly. Okay, well, let's continue a little bit about this. Then, so one of the points that we claimed that we're gonna discuss today was regarding not just about how to put together your hotel tech stack, but also how to know what is actually trending, like what's in, what is out. Maybe the kind of software that you would look for 10 years ago, it's not the same you would look at it now, or even last year, because things are changing super fast. So we're going to talk a little bit about what trends are currently shaping the hotel technology landscape and how should hotels adapt to them, right? And I want to start just by pointing out one thing that I think is key for every type of accommodation brand today. Doesn't matter if it's a hotel, hostel, resort, service apartments, etc. I think if you can manage to use your data, then you already have great part to achieve your goals. I see that data is actually becoming more and more important, and you need to know like who are your guests before you can make any type of decision. And I've seen this like with many clients we've talked to and so on, and they are actually like impressed by how much they've gotten to know their guest, right? Like compare a before and after. And I definitely think that the use of data, like whoever learns to leverage their guest data, is going to win the battle. So right now, if the business is about not just providing something good, but also how can you stand out from the competition, right? How can you make your accommodation the preferred choice? Then data can actually help you so much. So that's one of the trends that I would say you should keep in mind when building your hotel tech stack or your tech stack. Like, okay, what am I doing with my data? Do I have the tools to actually do something about it?
Maybe can I add something to that?
Yes.
Yes, it's very good to work with the data you have, and on the other hand, to set up your systems in a way that they are also scalable. Because my experience, most of the hoteliers not only have one hotel, they have two, maybe three, or they even have a whole group. So it makes much more sense to also think big from the beginning on. And it even begins with naming the room and the room categories, because most probably you will need those names or those naming things. I have to find the English word right now. So a kind of a naming system in the background that will help you in the future to scale this up, and maybe even think ahead and tell yourself, okay, how would I do this if how would this look if I had 10 hotels? How can I break this down? Maybe think this from a top point of view, and rather than just messing around. Quick and dirty is sometimes not the best way to go. Yeah,
exactly. Yes, I think it's like definitely one point to keep in mind. Okay, Thomas, what would you say are some other trends?
Yeah, it's a great topic, and I think always there's always especially for certain hoteliers, always the need or always the want to kind of go on the latest and greatest and always be on top of front of the latest tools and technology. But as we see, I do want to kind of put a kind of word of caution. Sounds so old school, but sounds so grandpa-ish. But hey. Put in your fundamentals first and put in your foundation first, because that is typically around a PMS or a CRM, and that integrates a lot of different applications up front. So if you build a foundation that actually is the source of truth, which holds the record of all your guests, and is actually the one system that integrates with the rest, if you have that very poorly in place or half configured or not in a good spot, you can put in a lot of different latest additions and things on top of it, but it's not going to work. So start with the bottom and build from there up. So that's one thing. And I think if you look at trends and developments over a longer term, hey, the things that we have come to see to the advantage of hoteliers is lower integration fees, easier integrations, which leads to a much easier ability to switch and actually try out different applications if you're not 100% happy, or you want to adjust your strategy a little bit. So that is definitely one trend that's helping hoteliers to become more flexible and try out more things. And I think the second trend, we touched upon this a little bit earlier, is around the employee experience, right? The employee ability to operate a system. Technology has gotten so much easier. If you look at so many PMS and technology systems out there, they pride themselves and they've invested themselves on making their systems easier to use. So when you do have turnover, people can pick up very easily where the other person has left off.
Yeah.
For sure.
There's not much to add, actually. And what is maybe not a trend, but something people now realize, that they spend a lot of money on systems because times are changing, costs are rising, and we need to really look deep into where we can maybe save $1 or $2 or €1 or €2. And some then realize, hey, we're paying a lot of money for various systems and we're not even making use of them. And therefore, again, it does make sense to maybe even, as you said, Thomas, look at the foundation and see how you can make this even stronger, make use of the existing systems. Or if you realize, hey, they're absolutely not future-proof, we have no possibility to grow with those tools because they're more static. Maybe they don't have easy to integrate APIs with, or other things that you can stumble across. It makes sense to look into different systems. However, really from my experience, most of the hotels just use 25% or less of what the systems actually can do. Yeah. And what I find interesting is from several of my clients, they now find, okay, they have, for example, a strong F&B game, not only hosting their hotel guests, but also hosting locals. And what they find, hey, we do not know much about our F&B guests, and how can we leverage that to get them to know better, and maybe even to serve them with similar campaigns as we already do with our hotel guests. Because I know Thomas maybe is a vegetarian, or Johanna likes steak, so she's receiving our steak newsletter or an invitation to our steak week. And Thomas, I don't know, I'll send him a carrot for Christmas.
Oh, thank you. That's more I could wish for.
That's a great
All
example.
right.
Yes. That's
Sorry.
great. No, but great. I think both of you have made like really interesting points. And now we have a little bit more clarity then about what should we, what trends, or I think what relevant things should we be paying attention to whenever we think about this topic. I think another point that is super interesting and that it's worth to just dive in a little bit more here, it's regarding integration, right? Because I mean, inevitably, when you're going to build a tech stack, you're not going to go with the same vendor, probably, right? And what if you like one that has like no connection to anyone? And what if like the ones you actually want, they cannot work in the exact way you want? I've seen so many people actually struggling with this, because then they draw like the ideal picture on their head. And when it comes to actually putting it on paper, or like to find out what they really can use, turns out it wasn't. And in some cases, they already paid, they already committed, and they're like, what should we do now? So what is important to consider in these cases? Like, how can we avoid this? And maybe if we are already in that mess, how can we get out of it? So I would love to hear both of your perspectives in this for this situation.
Go ahead, Thomas.
I'll kick off, and I do want to, hey, the person who was the anonymous attendee that sent in a question, awesome, thank you. We'll answer that in a second. Keep the questions coming. So you ask us if I like carrots, or if Tobias's favorite steak dinner. Anyway, going from there, I think integrations has always been a hot topic, and it's always been a difficult topic, right? And even with technology getting advanced, we're moving to open SaaS platforms. We're open to open API. Integrations are still challenging, and in order to kind of steer away from the situation where where you find yourself, if you're in that situation, well, it doesn't integrate as I want to. It all starts with the selection and the earlier steps in the process. So I would say focus on preventing getting into the mess that it doesn't work, because once it doesn't work, you have very little chances to fix it, because typically vendors are not very open to start changing integrations for you once you've got purchased and once you set up. Anyway, focus on the start, and in the start, make a really clear outline of what you need and what you want and what you want to accomplish, and in order to accomplish, what kind of data needs to flow from system A to B, and be very specific with the vendor. Just go line by line and really invest your time. If you buy a booking engine, or if you buy a CRM or guest experience platform or whatever it is, really go with the vendor and okay, so phone number, yes. Secondary phone number, oh, we only have room for one, or we have room for two, or do you have room for three? Do you have ability to do multiple email addresses on one profile? How does it work with multiple guests in one room? Or how does it work with booker versus stayer, right? Somebody books a room, but somebody else stays. There's so many questions to ask in the exploratory phase of selecting software. And if you invest your time there, be clear about what you want to achieve, then ask the right questions about the data that needs to go in order to get to that achievement. You prevent yourself being set up and then having to realize, well, I can only have one room per one guest per one reservation, for example. And that's really where you don't want to be, because once you're installed, it's typically very challenging to adjust things from there. So focus on the beginning. That's my advice.
Yeah, and to add, in addition, I'd say, while you do your due diligence in the beginning of a conversation with a vendor or with several vendors, also ask for references. Really talk to other hoteliers that already have this combination that you are achieving in place. They will let you very probably know what is happening and what is not happening. And sometimes it might also be the case that you come from a system and you're used to working with, let's say, a legacy system. And sometimes you just are so stuck in your daily business that it's hard to get out of this routine. And sometimes it also helps to talk to vendors to give ideas, to ask them for their best practice. How can I achieve to be modern? How can I achieve to be more automated? How can I be more efficient, or how can my team work more efficiently? Do you have best practice? How does it work? Who to talk to? Which hotel does this have already in place? And then from there on, you will also know what's fitting to you. But maybe this is also something where we are now heading into. If you don't know who you actually are and where you want to go, and as Johanna already said before, what your target group is and what your guests are, you will not achieve anything, because you will just basically be like a leaf in the wind, and you'll be blown wherever the wind goes. And it's then really hard to make a decision.
Yes.
I think you bring up a very good point, Tobias, you need to be prepared to actually change your method of working. And this could be let me give you an example of a customer I've worked with, and that if you look at the things like channel or source or the origin of the reservation, there are kind of three different fields that could all indicate to somewhat where this reservation is coming from. But in order to, if you look at where reservations come from, an OTA that goes to your channel manager, it might go to your CRS and then actually makes it into your PMS, and then might make it into your CRM or CDP or whatever you use. The way the fields are used, you might be able to need to change your operations and also change your other systems out there. So if you want to use a CRM very effectively, it means that you actually need to apply different naming terminology in your CRS or in your channel manager in order to be able to distinguish guests that come from OTA 1 to OTA 2 to a direct channel to a GDS channel, for example. So as a hotel, be prepared start to change operations if that's necessary to get a better result. And this is something, again, in the early stages. Discovery is great importance. And I can, sources like Hotel Tech Reports and reviews and case studies are excellent. 100%. Try to go one step deeper and talk to another hotel using the similar tech setup, and you will learn a lot more about the actual possibilities, but also if there's limitations.
Yes, and I wanted to add here that one way that we can see it as well is that you don't always need to actually get a two-way integration between every software that you're going to use. Because right now, basically, in the way things are set up, sometimes report-based integration, right? When you export data and import data, it's enough. So it really depends on what you are trying to achieve and what is your goal, because then you need to understand that so you can see, okay, what is it enough? Is it enough if I have this to what I want to accomplish, right? If it works, it works. So don't get frustrated beforehand because it's not like the perfect integration set, because it might be enough with some other things, but you need to know what you want. You need to know what you're trying to accomplish, basically.
I think that really pays on what Thomas said before, that you need to know your requirements. And as you mentioned, it does make sense to kind of weigh them as well. So to prioritize them for one, and to also weigh them, so you then can easily make a decision without even knowing actually which, or if you compare some vendors, that you can just have the data speak for you or make the decision for you, because we as people tend to make very subjective decisions based on who's our partner, who's sitting in front of you. How do we understand the other person? Is it German speaking, English speaking, whatever kind of culture they might come from as well? Or is it a recommendation from a different hotelier? For them, it might work perfectly, but it might be a different thing for my hotel. So yeah. Let data help you also in this case.
Yes, agreed. That's great. Okay, so now we've covered this point and we all agree that we need to avoid as much as possible that situation and get all the preparation beforehand, right? So now you know it. If you're taking notes, then this is an important part. Highlight it, please. And now we're going to continue a little bit more, because obviously, for people working in accommodations, they've already maybe tried a couple times to put together a tech stack, right? And not everything goes right all the time. That we all make mistakes and so on. But the idea is we can reflect a little bit on what are the common challenges and mistakes that people actually make when trying to put together a tech stack, so you can avoid them. And this doesn't happen in 2024, 2025, and on, basically. So let's dive a little bit into that. What should we avoid? What are the most common mistakes and challenges when putting this together? Tobias, please let us know.
Yeah, I think we already said this in different ways, but if you don't know yourself or your guests, you're doomed. So set a goal for yourself and know this goal, and teach that goal to your team as well. And that's already at the very beginning. Tell your team, hey guys, we need to work on ourselves. We want to make your work efficiently and more efficiently, and invite them to participate in this whole thing, because this will help you throughout this whole process. You might identify some champions in your team that really want to help, that really are interested in building such a tech stack, to administrate it maybe even, and to give them something to work towards to as well. So on the other hand, by the way, it's called, anybody of you knows the IKEA effect?
If you build it yourself, it's more beautiful.
Exactly. So
I was going to say something with do it yourself, because that's idea. Do it.
Exactly. So, and this is the case in a bad way. If you have been working with one system for, I don't know, let's say 10 years, and you got along more or less because you built your own workarounds because they were yours. And this is your system now, and it hurts if somebody takes it from you because you build it, and it's in your eyes, it's your baby, it's beautiful. But we can also make use of the IKEA effect if we involve the team from the beginning on. So if we ask them, hey, let's do this together, maybe think about what are the processes in your life, in your work life, that are really annoying. What do you think could work better on the everyday basis? And this doesn't have to be on a one spot brainstorming. It helps to ask the team to, hey, please write down on a daily basis for the next 2 weeks, what did really annoy you? Because some of you, and we all do this, just have a routine in doing things. And if we do it over and over again, we just don't realize it. And to create this awareness of how stupid some processes are is already helping a lot. Because then, if we are aware, we can find solutions together and think ahead and ask them, hey, and how would you think this could work better? And with that in mind, you can keep on doing your thing. And that's one of the most important things, I'd say, rather than just saying, okay, I'm the boss, I'm making the decision, I like how this looks, this is beautiful. I know Thomas, he's a cool guy, I talked to him about room price Genie, let's do this. While the team might think differently and have other priorities, and they have to actually work with it in the meantime, or in over the years then, sorry.
Yeah. No, I think very similar along the lines. We have such an agreement show today where we all agree with each other. But like my top 3 pitfalls are not knowing the why you want to accomplish something. The only like, oh, we want to do something because everybody is doing it. Well, why do you want to do this? I think is always a great question to start with. The buy-in from the teams, right? Make sure that your teams are on board. So many times I hear, and this happens in not only hotels, but in so many organizations, somebody decided to buy some new piece of software that everybody needs to use all of a sudden, and everybody on the line staff or the hotel level staff is just like, why? Just like, I don't want to be bothered with it. If you don't have that buy-in, it's never going to be succeeding. And I think the last thing for me is always very important is kind of a crawl, walk, run approach. Start with building something with incremental changes and improvements over time. It's a little bit of an utopia where you and I've talked to many of hoteliers that really want to start off and say, hey, you know what, I want guests that come into the lobby with near field communication, getting a message on the mobile phone and offering drinks and doing and while they're still run on a server-based PMS somewhere that just and their confirmation emails look like they're written in stone. Let's start with simple things, exactly. Learn to getting better and move along from there. And that shows results much easier, and you can build and improve. And that's a much better approach than trying to do it perfect from the beginning.
Yes, I think the mistake of like choosing a software based on only what you feel instead of what the team actually, how they will use it and so on, that's key. I was talking to a client recently and he was sharing like, the team is happy now, and that's my goal as a manager. And those words were like stuck with me as well, because I think that's definitely valuable in any organization. But his point of view was like, if my team is miserable, I'm not going to be able to create a good guest experience. So I need to look for a way and something that makes my team's life better. And not just that, but actually, if we can make them have fun even and like what they are doing, you know, and not be like, oh my God, one more day of work, then my job is done. Then I'm doing progress as a manager. And I think that's key when you're trying to choose and we're trying to build something. If your team is going to be overwhelmed by so many systems that you're choosing and not knowing what is it and so on, then it's just not going to work. So getting the buy-in, for sure. And just involve everyone, maybe not everyone, but like at least the ones that are going to be using it in the process. Both key things that I would say, like, yes, go for it for sure. Great. I like it that we are all agreeing with each other, but also sharing a bit of like different angles, which I think is really nice, because we don't want to just repeat what everyone else is saying. So that's great. Thank you for sharing all those interesting points. Now let's continue a little bit. Let's get moving, because we have some questions and we need to answer them as well. So there's one big challenge whenever you are building a tech stack. And this question has been in the industry since forever, right? And we already talked a little bit about this, and it's about, technology. Hotels are a bit afraid as well of like using too much technology, and they are like, if I get a software, it's gonna be like if I have a robot there, right? Like if it's automated, it's gonna be like people are not gonna feel the personal touch and so on. So what would be your advice to just keep the balance? How to find the right balance when you are designing your tech stack to actually leave what is good for humans to humans and leave to technology what technology should take care about. So how do we find the balance?
It depends.
Tobias.
So it highly depends. I mean, as Thomas said in the beginning, not every hotel is similar, and it will look different with a luxury hotel rather than a budget hotel where there's maybe no employees on site. But still, they do have one thing in common. If they don't know their processes, it's hard to then automate them. Because in my opinion is as soon as you mapped out a process, if you know every step by step, you will be able to automate it, no matter how complex it is. The question then will be, do I want to have this automated? If maybe there's a good time to interact with a guest, be it to, let's just say, check-in at a luxury hotel. They need to feel warm, they need to feel welcomed, but it might not be a good time to just stare at your keyboard and ask for name, address, and stuff like that. This is not a really welcoming atmosphere. Rather than, for example, taking them by the hand, sitting them down on a comfortable sofa or couch, whatever, giving them nice champagne, coffee, tea, whatever they want, and then have kind of a experience talk, what they would like to see during their stay, what they'd like to feel maybe, and this is then the perfect time to also try some upselling, for example. But in the background, technology can help us to prepare all those data, for example, to let us know what kind of rooms do we actually have available, what kind of packages are currently available, how much do they cost, and would it be able to just, I don't know, if I only have my iPad with me and the guest is sitting in front of me, I just click instead of, okay, let me check, go back to the reception and so on. So there will be breaks within processes where you maybe even have to switch between kind of an automation or technology-driven part and a human-driven part. So, I mean, what people currently often say is, high touch and high tech. And I think it's such a interesting term to use. Nobody really knows what it means, but hopefully my explanation helped a little bit to at least what I understand from it. That you combine those two worlds together to, in the end, create an awesome experience for the guest.
Yes, I agree. I will add that that's something we keep repeating in the team. And whenever we talk to someone, that technology is not meant to be used to actually replace someone. Like, I'm not going to bring technology to just replace a human, but to empower them to do more, to be more efficient, to allocate their time in the valuable tasks, right? And not just like, oh, it's a robot now instead of a person. So I think we can get that mindset out and just focus on how technology can empower. Yeah. That's great.
However, you still need to train your staff. If you just say, okay, that's the new system, have fun, and nobody really knows what it's for, as Thomas said, if you didn't explain the why, they will never care about the how. And if you then also consider guest feedback in this journey, maybe have a regular check, maybe use some kind of a tool that helps you to monitor those feedback that's coming online. You will then also be able to see, did it increase the customer experience, what we've implemented 3 months ago maybe, or did it even hurt us? So have this also in your decision as decisioning factor.
For sure.
I think there's one thing to keep in mind. If you have a broken guest experience as a hotel, technology cannot fix that. it's not a fix to improve your hotel guest experience. And I know that's a really broad term that could be from pillows to floor mats to shower pressure. But anyway, technology is not always a means to fix problems. It could be supporting your teams, but training your guests, sorry, your employees, and teaching them how to interact with guests, how to respond to guests, how to read guests is always something that is key to every successful hotel operations, regardless of the level of automation, technology, and design of tech stack that you use.
Yes, and it doesn't have to be one or the other. Like
exactly, there's no, it's not a binary choice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They can just live with each other. It's just about finding the right balance. Great. Okay, let's make some time to actually answer a few of the questions that we have. So we have one that says, besides the PMS and considering that guest experience is so important and crucial to building your brand, what other software are a must to have? And I would say here, you need something that you can actually handle your guest data with. Doesn't matter if it's BookBoost or another CRM, but you just need something. It's fine. You need something that helps you to handle your guest data and act upon it, to understand it and to act upon it. So I think that definitely has a huge impact. If you find the right software for you that helps you to do that, great. You are off to a great start, I would say. For me, that will be one key part of trying to build your guest experience. What else?
For me, it's the booking engine. It's the most frustrating parts of booking hotels direct is a horrible booking experience. And oh my God, booking engine experience. What a scramble word. But I think this is always one of the most ways where people just dive off and go to an OTA because it's easier to book and it feels it's just easier. So if there's investment to be made besides the PMS, I would invest your money in a good integrated within your website, not a third-party booking engine where you go off somewhere else, but integrated within your website that takes guests clearly by the hand about what do you book, what are the terms and conditions, what kind of room do you get, showing images of the rooms along the booking process. That and it shows that it shows easy in conversion and uptake in direct reservations. So that would be my take.
Yeah, I think.
Do you want to add anything else, or?
Well, it depends.
Yeah.
I think, the question is very narrowed down in terms of what will increase your brand or what will help to build your brand. And from just the marketing perspective, you both have the right answer already. What I think, and also putting my ex-hotel marketing hat on, have the systems, whatever systems you might use, well integrated. You don't want to have 3, 4, 5 different content management systems, be it for the IBE, be it for the CRM and the PMS, to fill it with basically the same data. And just, let's say you want to change breakfast hours, now you have to change it again in every one of those systems, and I'm really very sure you will forget one, and this will decrease the guest experience at some point. So if you do this, think ahead, try to save yourself some time, and find a way how they can be integrated, or as Thomas said before, have your single point of truth that can nurture all the other systems, maybe with the data. Yeah.
Great. Thank you both for your opinion. And we have one more question, but we're going to answer that one after we go through some best practices when building your tech stack, because this question is about how to measure the success, right? So if it's right, well, after that. So let's continue. We don't have much time left, so let's just try to move. Okay, so let's see. If you're in the role, actually, which is the case of many of our attendees, right? They actually need to build a tech stack. Then let's try to give one recommendation. one recommendation each. What would you recommend for someone that it's about to put together a tech stack for 2024? Maybe let's try to think about the things we haven't mentioned yet, because we already mentioned some great points, right? So one main thing, it's like, think about your goals for sure. Like, understand what is it that you want to accomplish. If you don't know where do you want to be, then you are not going to be able to figure out how to get there and what is it that you need to get there. So I think we can all agree, and we actually did say this before, but it's fine because it's very important. Think about your goals. Think about the things that you need to accomplish, that you want to accomplish with your property. And also, I think that's very nice what you said, Tobias, about like, not just think about the now, but also like maybe a little bit of like how it will be, right? When you're thinking about the situations. I think that's great as well, because then that will prepare you as well for later. Okay, up to you guys.
I'll go first. No, I think a lot of has been said. We've been talking for 46 minutes straight, so I think most of the topics have been discussed. But I think for me, if there's one thing that is clearly so often forgotten and see in failure, is around is the buy-in of the team. Really understand what their pain points are as a front desk agent, as a reservation manager, whatever your role is. Understand their issues, understand their needs and criteria, and take them with them in the buying process. Because I've seen it more often than once. Somebody somewhere somehow decided to buy a fancy piece of whatever technology, and it's getting no use in the hotel, and that's just a waste of money, resources, energy, everybody's time. So that would be my one thing to take away.
You're muted, Tobias.
Of course I am not. I learned nothing over the last years. So after we, as you said, we mentioned so many things, but what I want to just add to consider is budget and timing. Have a clear and realistic idea of when you want to migrate or implement a new system. Yes, it would be great to have it exactly in your lower time, but maybe talk also to the team if they're on holidays. Maybe also talk to the vendors you have decided for, if they have capacities to help you during that time. It's, of course, sometimes it's easy, you can do it yourself, and some systems do not need anything. However, it's always good to have everybody on board and make sure you have all the capacities allocated, like, of course, money, the personal, and that they maybe even have time or enough time for the training. You can't just switch on a system and expect everybody to be happy with it and to work with it. Have some training time beforehand, plan it out well, and maybe have a look at what's your goal, and add another 1 or 2 months. Yeah.
Great. Okay, great advice then. Let's dive in this question that we had from one of the attendees. How to measure the success of a hotel tech stack? Are there any aspects to look at specifically? Are there any differences between a chain hotel and an individual one? Who wants to go?
Oh, well, I'll start with the latter half of the question, because that's the easiest ones. Yes, there's differences between chains and independents. No, it's kind of open door question, but I think the biggest differences you're going to see is that independent hotels have much more flexibility and freedom to make decisions on a local level and decide, hey, this is what I want to purchase and move on with it or try. While chain hotels have very often many restrictions running on corporate levels with franchise agreements and all that fun part about that. So there's a lot more involvement. It's not necessarily impossible as a chain hotel, because there's always that friction or that kind of that tension between, hey, what does the brand actually dictate and what does the individual owner operate actually being able to do by himself. But there is a lot more restrictions around that. Around evaluation or scoring of software, There's so many. It's a very good question. There's not one good model to kind of apply to it and say, hey, you know what, it's like a health check that you can do and see. But I would building a line of a couple different categories where you evaluate something on. So that could be an integrations. How good is my data? Does it actually accomplish what I want to get? We talked about this. It is about ease of use. Hey, does the team find this easy to use, or is this something where they score the software low on? It's about support that you get from hey, when there's trouble, does the vendor actually be able to help you? How quickly is things getting resolved, especially for mission critical software like booking engines, channel managers, CRMs, PMSs. Everything needs to be up and running 24/7. So does that get solved in a timely manner? And things like outages or errors along the way. So I would write down the things that are important for you as a hotel, and on a yearly basis, hold your software to a scoring test and ask people, hey, how are we doing? Are we still happy with the support? Are we still happy with the system setup? And make it a habit of kind of going on a yearly basis to evaluate what you're doing and if you're still doing the right things. It's very easy to kind of get drawn into long-term contracts or auto renewal contracts or things like that. So, oh well, you missed the deadline here. You've gotten another 12 months on your contract agreement added. So be conscious of that and write those dates in your calendar. If my end date is April, let's start talking about this in February and think about it, especially on, again, these call it mission critical softwares, because you cannot run out your out without a channel manager or PMS, right? You need to have a plan in place if you want to replace this and not get into another 12-month contract.
Exactly. Yeah. Great. Tobias.
Yeah. By the way, as you might know, I'm also doing some volunteer work for the HSMA in Germany, and we just released a KPI set of all of the tech or not only the tech circle, but all of the expert circles from all those different departments like HR, marketing, etc. It's in German, but I think Google Translate, DeepL, or whoever does his magic to help you and use those KPIs to evaluate the tech stack. But if we want to concentrate on 2 KPIs that I see most important is compare your guest satisfaction and your maybe team retention data. So how many people quit, maybe the happiness score, if you have something like that in your hotel, to the times before you changed the tech stack or different systems out of it. And then, yeah, I think that will help.
Definitely. Okay, now we have an idea of how to measure this. So I think that's great. And with that, we'd actually have come to the end of today's session. So thank you both for joining, and thank you everyone that tuned in and everyone that will watch the recording. We just want to say like 2 main takeaways from today's session. First, whenever you think about tech stack, always consider what are your goals. You need to understand where do you want to be so you can figure out the best way to get there. And second, start small, step by step. Small steps take a long way. So before getting all complicated, figure out on getting the basic stuff done. And I think that's a great summary of everything we've discussed today. Thank you so much for joining us, Tobias and Thomas, and everyone who was watching this webinar and will watch the recording later. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
See you soon. Bye-bye.